So I went 2 days before, and that is one mistake which I did. Because I went in and I settled in a place where there are a lot of repeaters. I kept that respect for the GTO. Certain people, what you tend to do is like when you have a conversation as a person with like having a authority or someone who like at a given post, you have to maintain that distance. Certain people try to be over friendly, which is not at all necessary. At the end, my interviewing officer was like a poker face. He literally gave no reactions to whatever I said. I'm like, okay, fine. This is something new which I've never encountered before, because whenever I tend to have a conversation, that person either nods his head or gives me a smile in a way saying that I acknowledge what you're speaking. But my interviewing officer literally gave no reactions at all. You need to focus on what information you give. It is ultimately boils down to what information you give. That is what the officer will ask. If you give him additional information, additional information which may not be true, that is where you get caught. And one instance I would like to focus on is like when he asked me about my sports. When he asked me about sports, I have played basketball in school, as well as I've turned to boxing. So he asked me, why did you leave a team sport like basketball and start boxing? You can pick up, because interviewing officer will try to put you under a lot of pressure. And then now comes the funny part. I was like very serious. I said, sir, there's no coffee in the candidates miss. And he started smiling.
Hello friends, welcome back to Defense Raja, and I hope you're doing good. My name is Sheetal Yadav, and in today's interview we are having Kishore Kumar. He's from Bangalore and he got recommended in his very second attempt for AFSB Varanasi. So the best thing about him is that he took no coaching, he did at his own. So he's here to share his experience as well as the way he prepared for his SSB with various examples. So let's welcome Kishore Kumar. So Kishore, thank you so much for coming to this platform, and I'm very amazed to know the fact you got recommended without taking a coaching at your own. So I think this video is going to be beneficial for a lot of candidates, and I want to congratulate you to finally going to Air Force Academy. I want you to introduce yourself to the platform.
Hi Sheetal, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's my first time, yeah, but it's going to be a great one, I feel. So firstly, my name is Kishore. I come from Bengaluru, Karnataka. So armed forces are something which brought my attention, or something which I crave for since I was a child. I always was inspired by my uncle to join the armed forces. So I led in that direction ever since I was a child. So post that, I started taking up sports. Sports is something that which kept me going always, be it anything. Though I was very good in academics as well, but sports was something which I could not live without. So sports has been a very integral part of my life. You either find me at home, or if you don't find me at home, I'll for sure be in the gym. That is how that's how a bit about myself, Sheetal.
Okay. So Kishore, this interview is going to be very different from my previous interviews. This time, I'm going to discuss the whole journey, as well as we are going to discuss with few examples according to what you feel like perceiving through the respective TAT, VET, SRT, and PPDT as well. So starting from the beginning, I want to know, Kishore, in the very first time when you went to SSB, you got screened out. And the very second time when you went without coaching, you got recommended. So my point is that what are the flaws you feel like you committed in your very first attempt, and on the second attempt, what are the areas you worked on, and how did you prepare your screening part mostly?
Firstly, Sheetal, I cleared my CDS to 2021 in my very first attempt. So I could only clear the cutoff for OTA, and which I aimed for. Things went very well with part of written. And next was the interview took usually a longer time than the conduct interview for SSC Tech, so it was a bit longer dates. So since I had a clash with my NSEM exams, so I had to give up 2 exams and go to Allahabad. So first thing in your fear as a fresher, it sits in your mind saying that Allahabad is a rejection center. Right. That comes and sits in your mind. Because you talk to a lot of people. So but that didn't hold me back, because rejection is something which I didn't fear. Being an athlete, you have to face a lot of failures, or maybe it's like anything, but failures or rejections are not, it's all part and parcel of life, especially if you're an athlete. So
Right.
I didn't give much about it. I started preparing for screening, especially with PPDT and OIR. So OIR I know because I was very good in math and stats. So I had that calculating and analytical thinking. So that was not a bigger part. Then too, I picked up a book called OIR Reasoning, which is by Defense Direct Education. So when I started preparing for it continuously, so I consistently scored like around out of 30 questions are there. I used to score at least 28, 29 by self assessment. Then post that, I was pretty confident with my OIR. Then post the PP and DT. I was little bit skeptical because I had no prior experience of speaking in front of a crowd. So I maybe say that I've always was holding myself back when I used to speak. I avoided speaking for the to the crowd. So that is where I lacked. So my mirror was my best friend to prepare for PP and DT.
Okay.
It was like me for myself. I imagine like there are multiple people sitting in front of me, and I just started practicing like that, looking at the mirror, and I started analyzing the picture in a norm, like how to say, like how the picture is shown. I started perceiving, keeping the simple problems very simple, which you face in your day-to-day life. I never kept my stories something which is very superficial. So this is how I generally prepared for PP and DT. For stage two, I had to not prepare much because GTO is something like which is my day to day just one, and bit of thinking as well goes there. And the other part was lecture I had to practice, and personal interviews also you don't need much of practice. So nextly, to speak about my attempts, so I went to 11 SSB Allahabad. My interview date was on 21st of June 2022 this year. So I was like, I went 2 days prior to Allahabad because I couldn't get a train ticket for, the Agniveer protest was at the peak that time. So I went 2 days before, and that is one mistake which I did because I went in and I settled in a place where there are a lot of repeaters. I
Okay.
got in a lot of negative stuff a lot of negative stuffs. I shouldn't be saying that, but that's the truth. I got a lot of negative steps. I started doubting myself there. Then too, I cleared my mind. I went back and we reported around 5:30ish near Karyapadwar in 11 SSB Allahabad. So the very first test was a very big bouncer for me. In
How?
comes a bubble sheet for OR. That
Okay.
took me by surprise
Okay.
because I never expected bubble sheets. Because as per I've heard from people only told they give you a sheet of paper and you need to record your answers there.
Right.
I've never prepared for bubble sheets. At least you take 5 to 10 seconds to prepare. To bubble a answer.
Right.
So that is where I felt that a bit challenging. So, but then too, I fairly did a bit of OER, but not up to the mark. Then at PP and DT, the picture was crystal clear. It was not at all hazy.
Okay.
It went on well smoothly and stuff like that. But in my back of the mind, I had that thing saying that, oh, my OER didn't go well. And when it went to the discussion part, I messed it up there. I took a lot of time then the time given to me, and I like I was stumbling in middle and stuff like that. I got to know where I went wrong, and I knew that maybe this is what would stand in front of me, screening in or screening out. And it happened. I got screened out. I was dejected. Like, it is a normal human nature to be dejected for that particular time. And after that, I was like, yeah, fine. Maybe you know your mistakes, go back. Then from there, I had to leave Allahabad, came back to Bangalore, and I had around a month and a half to prepare for my next interview, which was in for AFSB Varanasi. So I came back. I started working on OERs. I started particularly. I took a bubble sheet module from the internet, and I took a lot of printouts of it, and I started timing my tests and doing it on a bubble sheet, so that it was beneficial for me, because when you give on a sheet of paper you tend to do it more quickly. So that is why I practiced OIR with bubble sheet. OIR was not a problem for me, and but then too, I wanted to be it perfect. Then next comes PP and DT. PP and DT, I started timing the discussion part and the narration part. So when I started with the narration part, I saw to that 45 seconds was like my time cap. I condensed my story in such a way that I used to give the crux of the story to the narrator,
Okay.
and that really helped me a lot. Because I still remember, like, when I went to PP and DT, the assessor hardly in 20 minutes he got my story, and I got that impression saying that yeah, maybe I have conveyed, or maybe he didn't understand, but it was on the positive side, and the narrator the assessor easily understood the story. So this was like a bit of screening, to be precise, for my first two attempts.
Wow. So, Kishore, as I said, this is going to be a very different interview rather than if you see my previous interviews. So here comes the picture, and I want you to, perceive the picture and give a crux and, what you have perceived and how do you perceive a picture and what kind of story you make through it. So yeah, this is the picture.
So from the from the picture which you showed to me, I can perceive like there are two characters, a male and a female. I can say the male is around 25 to 26 years of age, and the female is around 22 in the early 20s, I would say. So the male character is in a neutral mode because he's trying to perceive what's happening in the situation, and the female is of course in a negative mode. So I would like to take an action of saying that taking action against domestic violence. So Raghu, for instance, I keep my character's name as Raghu. So Raghu works in an MNG. He is actually from a small hometown, a small village in the outskirts of Karnataka, and he lives in Bangalore so that he makes a decent living by working in an MNC. One evening, like once when he was returning back home, he finds his sister being very dejected and sitting in the garden under a tree. So he approaches her and he asks like what's wrong and stuff like that. So when he asks, she tells like they are like there's a constant violence against her, like they're harassing her at home in in line of dowry. So which is very much common in the present day context. Even though we are in the 21st century, you go to the outskirts of any villages, most of the places this is a very big issue which is happening. So that is why the sister explains to Raghu saying that so and so things are happening, my in-laws and my husband are harassing me and harassing me for dowry and some stuff like that. So Raghu was actually, he'll be very angry with this, and he'll immediately go and approach his sister's in-laws and husband and explains them that it is not right to do, and also tells that there are a lot of legal measures which he can approach if he wants to, because dowry is a punishable offense in our country. And the worst part is about dowry is that people don't know that there are legal measures. That's
Right.
another this part. When you show up this in a PPDT, the assessor thinks you have some fair bit of knowledge, and it also shows your thinking towards women.
Right.
So that is what I feel, because I strongly believe in equality.
Right. Right. Right.
So that is one thing which I could perceive. So he explains to the in-laws and the husband of his sister, and he also tells that he better correct his attitude towards his sister and treat her properly, which she deserves to be. And he also tells that if it happens again, he'll for sure approach all the legal measures and see to that he's punished under the law. So this is what I perceive from the picture.
Wow, various things you just try to portray in the picture which I've shown to you. It was amazing. I never expected to think this picture in that way. So I think this interview is going to be a lot of fun. Now let's move to the psychological part. Psychological part consists of TAT, VET, SRT, and ST. So how was your experience among all those four? So let's start it from TAT. So how did you made sure that you are completing your story in that limited time, and how did you
So,
prepared yourself for TAT?
yeah, to speak about that, that is nothing but they show you a picture and you get around 4 minutes to write the story. So it's something like that, and these pictures are not that rocket science or something. It's very simple layman picture which you can see and perceive. So if you have prior experience of reading or reading the newspaper or normal reading itself, you'll get to know what's happening in and around you. You might be able to connect those things to your picture, and it shows that your immense knowledge as well as what you are made of. So that was something like that. So that is very simple. You just need to perceive, and mainly depends on how quickly you write. And at the same time, it doesn't mean that the picture is shown something and you write something else. So at the same time, I would like to say that your story should not be that superficial, saying that suppose they show a group of 5 people stealing and you're alone. Your story shouldn't be in such a way that this he single-handedly fought that 5 people. It only happens in Bollywood movies or like any movies and
Right.
stuff like that. So it should be very simple. Rather than that, you can have saying that, oh, he called the police, he stalled them, and over. So it's something like that.
Okay.
So this is what is my personal assumption of TAT. At the same time, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just saying my experiences.
Okay. So as we are going to experiment with the picture, I want you to perceive the picture and tell what you perceive and how did you perceive the picture. So here comes the
Yeah.
picture.
Okay, fine. So in this picture, you can see a man and a woman. So this picture you can easily connect to your layman. I mean, daily day. I mean, like whenever you travel, right? You'll get to meet a lot of people like this. So my story goes like this. For example, the girl's name is Tanisha, and she studies in a college in a city, and she's going home for a vacations. So while going like that, her journey was smooth up until the night. At night, this man was right opposite to her, he started shouting in a loud voice. This is something which we encounter most of the time when we go in trains.
Right.
So then Tanisha stepped in because there were a lot of held up people, and this train passes through a lot of places, and the stop somewhere sometimes comes early in the morning or late at night. So some people literally need readiness because you don't know where they are going. So what Tanisha thought is like, she steps up because no one was correcting the man. So she stepped in. She asked him like to talk softly because there was a lot of people who were sleeping and resting, and there were even elderly people in the train, which is like a usual scenario which happens to us. And she tried to explain, but the man was very adamant because this is like a real reality, because a lot of people who don't even care about others. They're like so selfish that only their existence matters and their work matters. They feel like others don't have work. So she stepped in and she talks to him, but he is very adamant. He doesn't at all like say that I'm not gonna stop lowering my voice. And she thought, okay, this man is going out of control. Then she thought of another measure, which is like the RPF Railway Protection Force. They come on rounds during the nights. So she thought that that is the best way to approach this RPF personnel and complain about this man. And finally, for her luck, she found one RPF personnel, and she complains to her, and that man comes in. Right, in our country, like unless and until a person with authority comes and say you don't actually shut it down. So that man comes in, the personnel comes in and explains to the man and explains the consequences, what will happen if for disturbing, because usually after 10 you're not supposed to disturb the co-passengers.
Right.
But in our country they don't do that.
Mhm.
They don't believe in privacy and stuff like that. And finally, post that, the personal explains him how is he disturbing and stuff like that, and he explains it to him. And finally, once a person with authority comes and tells, he lowers his voice. Maybe this move was very simple, but it would have benefited some or the other way with others. So this is what I perceive from that picture.
Wow, it's amazing to know your point of view here. So Kishore, now let's move to word association test, because here you get a 60 words and you have to write in a very less time, that is 30 seconds. So here I'm going to create bit challenge for you. I'm going to tell you some words and I want you to make a sentence. And how do you make those sentences? What are the reason behind you made that particular sentence? So here comes the first word. What do you feel like perceiving from this word murder?
So murder. So for murder, I would say that textual language. So the thing which we text, the language which we use for texting. So with respect to that, so textual language literally murders the essence of literature. So my reason for giving this sentence is that, so we are so moving forward with this textual language that we tend to write it even in our exams. I'm not a very big fan of literature, but I feel that certain things have to remain original as it is. So that is one way why I wanted to write, because you see, like everything is a short form now. Like there is no shortcuts in it. I don't believe in shortcuts. And yeah, it makes your time, it saves your time, but at the same time it is not necessary to kill the essence of something which has come down for years together. So you need to protect it. So that is what I thought of for murder.
Wow, I'm just getting a different point of view regarding this word, because this is somehow sounds like a negative word. So people might tend to make sentence very far more than imagination. So I want to give another word as well. What do you feel like perceiving from the word challenge?
See, for challenge, this is something which strikes to my mind always, whenever I work out or any situation I face which is challenging. So the sentence goes like this: if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. So this is what I thought of a sentence, because it has to challenge you. Then what's the point in you taking up something if it doesn't challenge you? Something new you gotta try. That needs to be challenging. Only then it'll shape you into whatever you are, or something like that. That is what I strongly believe.
Okay, so it was amazing. I just took random examples and what could be perceived in a very different manner, but your point of view would have given an idea to the candidates who are watching this video. So, Kishore, I want to know, how did you perform your VAT part, word association test, and how it went, and what are the things you kept in mind while performing VAT?
So again, it was the race against time. So there are certain words like which I couldn't write. I couldn't do all 60 words. I did somewhere around 55, I guess, 55 to 57, somewhere in that. So the words are like, they pop it up for 15 seconds, okay, not 30 to be precise. They tell it's 30, but you get only 15 seconds to write, and the next word flashes it.
Right.
The thing is, like, see, people tend to practice this test in such a way that you will start thinking 50 seconds are too less.
Exactly.
Too less to think about what you have practiced. So it's better that you stay natural. If you do a lot of reading, I feel that you'll get to form sentences. Form sentences which are small and simple. At the same time, you can't keep your sentences more than a line. Like hardly you can do is like 6 to 7 words. So that is the maximum limit you can keep it for a VAT, because you can't expect to write 2-3 lines. If you write 2-3 lines, you'll miss out on a lot of words. 2-3 lines, you might almost miss up to five words. So as much as possible, the response should be spontaneous, and you can keep it very short and simple. So that's what is for VAT. It all boils down to your writing speed and your in our sports term we call it like agility, like how you move from one point to other, how quickly. So that is how you have to be.
Okay, thanks for correcting. Exactly, the VAT takes, they give only 15 seconds, and that is so true. So now let's move to the SRT part. So situation reaction test is something, you get a situation and there are sometimes very tricky situations. So how did you perform your SRTs and how it went during your SSB?
So for the SRTs, technically people say that you have to complete the entire booklet, do all the 60 problems which is given in the booklet, but that is not true. It is like, what is the quality you write? I did around like 45, I guess, if I'm not wrong. So I feel that it doesn't depend on what you give. I mean, like, sorry, it's like not on how much you complete, it's like what is the quality of answers you give. For SRT, as I've already told, based in the PP and DT and TAT, that you have to be very practical, and that kind of response which you give should be able to be performed by a layman in his daily life. It should not be something very superficial or something like that. So that is what I wanted to say. Another thing of SRT was that I found a pattern when I gave my SRTs. Like there are multiple SRTs which were repeated, but the sentences were in a different form, saying one, the question was the same. I mean, the question what you perceive from that was the same, but it was written in different sentences. I feel like personally that they gave it in such a way that they were just wanted to check how concrete are you on your answers, so that whether you will use stick, or each and every time the question is changed, you try to alter your answers and portray a different person. Maybe that is what I feel that was for SRT. That is what I personally perceive from my this one for SRTs. So this is about SRT.
Okay, so Kishore, now I'm going to ask you two SRTs so that how you write your SRTs can give a bit idea, so that the candidates who are going for the very first time and without coaching can get a guidance regarding it. So here comes your first SRT. What is your point of view regarding this SRT?
So see, in this SRT which I was showing on the screen, the thing you can do is be very practical and do is like, first that person, whoever lost his briefcase, has to look around in the nearby compartment, whether it has been misplaced or what, or even he can ask the nearby people who are seated in his compartment, and ask him to check whether they have seen his briefcase or not. After all these attempts, if he still doesn't find, he can get down in the next station and complain to the RPF, and keep following up on that and find for a suitcase. This is a very simple thing which you could do. There is nothing else he can't do apart from this, I feel.
Okay, No, that is exactly what needed to be done. So here comes the another SRT. He noticed a car moving with a high speed running over a child on a road.
So see, this is like a unusual scenario because you have seen a car, it's literally hitting a child on the road. So what he does immediately is that he notes down the car number, the car model, and the car color. And the priority of his should be to save the child's life, even though there is like a very minimal chance of this child to survive. He has to make sure that this child, he has to put in his attempt to survive, make the child survive. So he'll take, what he can do is once he note down the car color, name, and number, he can take a rickshaw which is nearby and take the child to the a nearby hospital and get it treated. Post after once he gets the child to the hospital, he can go to the nearby police station with all the information which is recorded, because it takes a split second to note down the car number and the color and the model, because you can easily do it. So you can keep that this one, and even go give a complaint to the local police station. If to his benefit, if there is a camera with all these numbers matching, he can easily track down the person who hit the child. So that is what my answer could be.
Okay. No, it's very amazing to discuss these SRT, VAT, and TAT. Now let's talk about SD. Self-description is something everyone faces difficulty in. How much to write, what to write. Either you need to appreciate your qualities or you should write your flaws. So there are a lot of things, going here and there on internet. What was your point of view when you were writing these self-description?
So with self-description, right, you can, the main thing is, the main source of your information is your friends and family. Please don't go and ask it's like whoever is watching, I want to say this to them, like, please don't go and ask sweet things about you.
Okay.
People will tell n number of sweet things to you. You have to go and ask for the worst possible things your friends think about you are. Maybe I wouldn't say, the negative part of you can ask them, because positive things, people will have a lot to tell about you. You have to work on your negatives, because positives are something which people tend to brush it off. For instance, like you do a lot of good deeds, but one negative thing you have done, that is the only thing which remains a speck of black dot on your entire whatever good deeds you have done. So I feel like you can work on more on your like negatives, and those negatives will be in such a way that which everybody faces in layman's daily life, which is correctable. So you can ask for such things from your friends and family. I don't think so there are other people better than them who know about your negatives as well. So work on that. Like writing what on that, and there is no harm in appreciating yourself. Also, you have to put down your positives as well. Another thing, whenever you're writing whatever like drawbacks, I wouldn't say negatives, the better word would be drawbacks, I feel. So whatever drawbacks you feel like you have perceived, what your friends or your family is told, what is that you mention, though you mention them, at the same time you have to mention them, saying that what are you doing currently to correct them.
Okay.
It's not like you just write the drawbacks and just leave it off like that. It's like an unfinished book. So you have to give a conclusion saying that where did I go wrong, not wrong, where did I go wrong, and what are the measures I'm taking to rectify myself.
Exactly.
So that is what you can do in ST. So these are the main things you have to keep in mind. So appreciating yourself is it is very necessary, because without motivation it's very difficult to do a lot of stuff. So appreciating things also is necessary. At the same time, when you write your drawbacks, you have to write a concrete conclusion saying that what are you doing to overcome this drawbacks. So this is one thing I would like to say about ST.
So Kishore, I guess everybody who is watching the video, they get a very brief insight about the psychological part. I've noticed a pattern in AFSBs. What they do is taking their screening test in the starting of the day, and then in the evening they conduct the psychological test. And sometime the next day is preceded by the GTO or the interview. So as you have mentioned, you had the GTO on the very second day. So how did you prepare for GTO, and tell me, how did you performed the GTO? What are the measures you keep in mind, and how your GTO went?
For GTO, your physical fitness is plays a vital role, because if you go to Varanasi or anywhere towards the north, east, west, like the centers apart from zone, the weather is extremes during until July, I guess. It's very hot and humid.
Right.
It's your fight against stamina, and your physical fitness plays a vital role there. So I would like to say, like, one thing is, like, I guess people who have gone recently to AFSB, there's know that the individual obstacles have been scaled up. There is even rope climbing, which requires a good, more than a fair amount of decent upper body strength, so that you need to work on your physical fitness. And it's not only about the GTO part. Physical fitness keeps you very, what do I say, like, it keeps you focused and concentrated. So physical fitness plays a very vital role in the throughout your 5 days stay at the FSB or SSB, wherever it is. So with respect to GTO, I had zero practice for the FGT, PGT and stuff like that, because there are no instruments. So because see, there are a handful of academies here. There are, like, to be frank, there are more than a handful. So the fees is around 20 to 30,000. So I thought, like, I don't think so it was worth it for me personally. I'm just telling my personal experience. I don't feel it is, like, worthy for me to spend that so much money, which I guess little bit of your brains, if you use it, it's way more better. I got a help of a lot of pictures of how their GTO is conducted, especially with the PGT half group task or the progressive group task. I mean, the full group task. So based on that, I saw these pictures and I did a few reading how to build these basic bridges and how to tie knots like that. And that is the part which I dealt easily with. And with the PGT and FGT, you have even the insights from your group members. So that is easily handle. I mean, you could handle it, because once you do one of these tasks among, like, PGT or FGT, you get an idea. So you'll be able to carry on. So my GTO started with, I guess, the group discussion. Group discussion started with how this sporting leagues play a vital role, whether they're only to make money or to like, what to say, or they are promoting this one. So we couldn't just say that one is correct. So we had a very fair amount of discussion, and it was a healthy one. At times we were off track and we went somewhere else. So but I played, like, I felt like in that discussion, I felt like in moments I stepped in and I calmed down the group and I directed them towards a necessary thing. That is necessary, because whenever you tend to have group discussion, though it is healthy, try to deviate if possible. Like, whenever you're involving in a group discussion, you can try to bring them back to the situation and give your useful insight. That is one way where you can show your participation as well. So the next topic was around nepotism, and because it was the issue which was going on a lot that time, maybe everybody spoke well, which we didn't have an option. Next, we had a group planning exercise. Right. Group planning exercise is pretty much same. They gave a model, and we were able to crack the module, like how to solve this issue. We prioritized on which so there was a issue of saving lives. So we had to see the number of people who are there and the priority of them to be saved. Based on that, we solved our issues, and fortunately I was nominated by my group to narrate our plan for how would we solve this issue. And it went on smooth. I condensed all the inputs which I got from my group members, and I was able to say within a minute or 50 seconds, I would say. And the GTO wanted to reassure, and he asked the group, and the group stood with me saying that, yeah, we all agree to this story. So I felt that, I felt good, and I pat on my back for doing that. So that was one thing. Then lecture it. I have to stress on this, saying that people think that 3 minutes of speaking from the internet, it's really not necessary to speak completely from the internet. I feel like lecture it requires what are your views about it, what views about a particular topic. It is not about what you get on the internet. That is something anybody can do. You are on your free time, you can just switch on your phone or whatever accessible devices you have. You can look for the necessary information, be it stats or figures, anything. You can just get it from the internet. I'm not saying that you completely need to avoid that. You have to give them the basic necessity, like the background. So when you're giving the background or the introduction, you can use this kind of information. At the same time, it is necessary to include what you feel about that particular topic. What are your views? For instance, you're speaking about space race. like what do you think your stands are about India's space machines? What do you think in the near future? How do you think India can contribute? If you have read about it and if you have concrete knowledge about it, you might give information about that. So that is what one thing which I picked up from lecturettes. So this was like day one roughly. Then on day two we had our half group task, full group task, and progressive group task. I'm not having a like much of memory of it, but it was pretty much smooth. It's building about your basic bridges and rope knots, and it ultimately it also it depends upon how you are bonding with your group. Because if you have a very good set of friends, you make friends with them, it goes on smoothly. If you dislike anyone there, it is not going to work for you, because as a group it is ultimately boils down to a group, because the name itself says that progressive group task, or it has a group in its acronym. So that is what I feel. It's like even you're apart from your knowledge, it also depends on how you interact with your group members as well. So next we had a group obstacle race, or the snake race. This is one of the most fun part of the SSB. So
Right.
people are filled with josh and stuff like that. So at the same time, see, winning in this race is not at all necessary. It depends on how well you listen to the assessor and how you follow the rules. Because there are minute rules which we don't tend to pay attention, because we are giving out this war cries and shouting on top of our voice. Our throat, like my throat was really gone, like shouting our war cries and stuff like that. I could in a way connect this group obstacle race or the snake race to boxing. It was like how, right, we literally don't tend to listen to the GTO in that Joe's situation where you're focused on winning and doing like that. So in boxing is like how that you don't go immediately into the ring and go all out without having studying the opposition. Like it's per my personal experience, you need to study the opposition, how does he move and stuff like that, and you pick it up like that. So that is what I felt. At the same time, how did I connect is like you have to do that pre-work. Whenever the GTO is speaking about this instruction, it is very necessary for us to listen, because these are the minute mistakes which you make, which will ultimately affect the team. Because you're representing a team. If one person goes wrong, it's the entire team to blame. You can't just blame a single person when it comes to team. So that is what is one thing we have to keep in mind. Yeah, it is the fun part. We need to have fun, but it is necessary to listen even to the rules and regulations. So GTO was very smooth for me. I was fortunate enough. GTO gave me 3 to 4 concessions. I had to not climb the wall because I was literally helping everyone climb. So 3 to 4 concessions by the GTO, and my smooth snake race went on very smooth, and we ultimately finished second, and we were like on top of the world, though we finished second. So this is
Okay.
something about the GTO.
So Kishore, till now I'm enjoying your GTO part, and now I want to know how was your command task. So, what are the things you have
So
observed after your experience? And there are beliefs that more number of people, if they ask you to join them for their being the assistant in the command task, it is more beneficial. So, what is your point of view in the command task?
see, command task is something like they test how well do you think, how quickly do you take decisions. At the same time, they also look at you don't give up easily. So it is very necessary when especially you're going into the defense forces. Not giving up is something which you should be having it in you, because you give up, you literally lose. It's way better than losing after you tried than to just give up like that. So that is what I believe, and I guess the command task in a way also looks that one. So another thing that a lot of people call you, and it shows that you'll get selected because a lot of people call you. That doesn't matter at all. It just shows that you have made a very good bond with your fellow candidates, and that's all. Nothing apart from that. I don't feel like that. Though I was called by most of them, so my command task was like a bit funny initially. I went in the GTO. I was called the last second, so I went in and the GTO asked me regular questions like how are you, like how was your stay, and what you're studying like that. And even he asked me about my family members, which I told. Then he asked me one question like, you are from Bangalore, why did you come to Varanasi? So I was like, sir, I wanted to go to Mysuru, sir, but I didn't get dates, sir. And other thing, I have an hobby of traveling. So I thought I might as well see Varanasi. I felt like he started laughing, and like I felt like okay, fine, but I didn't. At the same time, felt that I kept that respect for the GTO. Certain people, what you tend to do is like when you have a conversation as a person with like having a authority or someone who's like at a given post, you have to maintain that distance. Certain people try to be over friendly, which is not at all necessary. You need to just answer to the point and just finish the conversation. Certain people tend to give each and every possible thing in one small comfortable question, which is not necessary, I feel. So that is one thing which has happened. Then my command task, he gave me a situation. The GTO gave me a situation, and I was like, oh yeah. First I thought, oh, maybe it might be something very difficult. Then I gave he gave me a situation, and like I was able to solve it in around 15 to 20 seconds. And then it's like, I mean, like he didn't mean it, but I mean, he didn't tell it like say that I have a surprise for you, but it was like meant like, oh, I have a surprise for you. And then like he started like taking out each and everything, saying that this is turning red, you don't have this helping material and stuff like that. uh, and I was stuck for like 2 solid minutes, and I was thinking what to do, and finally he gave me a it, and I was able to complete with 1 minute left. I was like overjoyed when I finished in 15 to 30 seconds, and then it came like a very big surprise. The GTO started removing all the helping materials, and he started changing the colors. Yeah, I feel like he wanted to check me how do I work under pressure. So maybe he did that. So the thing I did was I didn't give up, because like I draw a lot of inference from my sports thing. So saying that being an athlete is something where you don't give up very easily. You keep trying unless and until you have that last bit left in you. So that was how my command task went.
So Kishore, after knowing your GTO, it was very interesting, I must say that. And I think a lot of candidates would have got insight regarding what are the things to keep in mind when you're performing your GTO. So let's move to the interview part. How was your interview? And I want to know the kind of environment the interview had with you and how it went.
So my interview was on day 3. So what happened was like I didn't have any break to change. So as soon as I finished my GTO, I immediately had to rush to the interview. I didn't even get a chance to have lunch or even drink water. I just washed my face, like just wiped off all the sweat, and I just ran. And there when I go to the room, they made me wait for like around 30 minutes, and then the interviewing officer calls me in. My interviewing officer was like a poker face. He literally gave no reactions to whatever I said. I'm like, okay, fine. This is something new which I've never encountered before, because whenever I tend to have a conversation, that person either nods his head or gives me a smile in a way saying that I acknowledge what you're speaking. But my interviewing officer literally gave no reactions at all. He basically started with my interview wholly revolved around my PIQ stuff like that. So it was very much easy. But in interview, I have to say one thing is that you need to focus on what information you give. It is ultimately boils down to what information you give. That is what the officer will ask. If you give him additional information, additional information which may not be true, that is where you get caught. So it is necessary to give information which have a very good command over it, and it is ultimately true. Based on that, you keep giving information. The interviewing officer keeps questioning you based on that, on revolving around that. So my interview started pretty much smoothly. He asked me to introduce myself. He asked me about my city. Then the rapid fire questions about my education, my parents, and I had a part-time job. So he asked me about that, and how do I manage my finances and stuff like that. So he asked me questions revolving around that, and to my surprise, I hardly had 2 or 3 current affairs which I was allowed to choose and speak about it.
Okay.
So I spoke about the Sri Lankan crisis and the hijab controversy, because it was like the major hot topics during that time. And finally finally this revolved, or like this interview happened like for a long time with all this mostly about my personal life and stuff like that. Excuse me. And post that, when I was about to leave, like in the ending minutes, around like 5-10 minutes. He asked me about the Air Force Chief and about the Air Force Academy. And one instance I would like to focus on is like when he asked me about my sports. When he asked me about sports, I have played basketball in school as well as I've turned to boxing. So he asked me, why did you leave a team sport like basketball and start boxing? So I told him, sir, no, sir, like it requires a lot of boxing requires stamina, but not the amount of stamina which boxing requires. So I tried to explain him that, and also told that the agility and whatever it is, comparatively to basketball, which I played. I personally feel that boxing requires lot more of stamina, lot more of focus, and lot more of agility than basketball. In basketball, you tend to get a breather, but in boxing, you literally get nothing. You little bit like there's a blink of eye and you're knocked out. So I tried to explain him. He tried to, I guess, break my confidence. Say that no, I don't think so. Basketball is way more better. I like, no, sir. I was very concrete on my saying that. Saying, sir, no, sir. I've tried both the games, and I completely feel that boxing is way more better. It is, and I even literally told him that is my very personal experience, sir. I don't know about others, but I really feel this, sir. And he didn't agree. Like on an instant, 2 or third attempt also he tried to say, and finally I said, no, sir, this is what I feel. I don't know about what others feel. Then finally he kind of nodded his head. That was his first nod.
Okay.
And finally that was one thing which I felt. He did that. He wanted to check whether I'm sticking to my own answers or changing when pressure is introduced. So that is one thing which you can pick up, because interviewing officer will try to put you under a lot of pressure, and he'll try to bring about what do you crumble under pressure. And it is not necessary for us to crumble, because it is his duty to put us under pressure, and it is our responsibility. I mean, I wouldn't say responsibility. It is like when you know your facts are right and perfectly all right, you will stand for yourself, no
Definitely.
matter even the world is against you. If you know you're right, you can do it. So that is what I picked up from the interviewing officer. And finally, when he was leaving, he asked me, how was your stay in Varanasi? Then I was like, no, sir, I came like 2 days prior to Varanasi. Then I roamed around and I touched the water of Ganga. And he gave a wide smile. And that was like when I understood, like, oh, finally, this interviewing officer also smiles. And it ended on a sweet note. So this was about my interviewing part.
Wow. I get to know a very important facts what you have mentioned during your interview journey. So what about your conference? Because conference is something, you get to see a lot of officers at a one place and there's a president who asks the question. And how was your conference, by the way?
Oh God, I would never forget this conference. Conference was the best part of the entire interview for me.
Okay.
So when conference started, right, my chess number was 7. We were
Okay.
initially supposed to start. We were all sitting. We were all got ready. There was one group which had their GTOs on the last day. It usually happens on AFSBs that one group had a GTO. Apart from that, not only that, there was some party as well going on in that conference room. So there was a lot of delays. I was initially supposed to start. They put us in the last, and we kept waiting. Then they sent us off to lunch, and I was with a clear mindset that I get recommended or not, I have done my 100%. So I didn't worry much about it. Then finally, my time comes. Chest number 6 has gone in and he's come out, and I'm like waiting for like more than 20 minutes. There's no watches at all in the place where you stand, and that keeps you more anxious. I'm waiting. I'm like peeping out, looking for the light to turn green. It's not happening, and I see the person who stands outside in the door. Would he call me, or did I miss something, or something like that? It didn't happen. And finally, the light turns green, and they call me inside. And I go inside, and I see officers, and I'm like surprised, because it's like for the first time, and I've never experienced such a thing before. So that happened, and I went in, and the president greeted me and he asked me to sit. The chair also was placed in such a way that you find officers in every place. Like you light tilt of your eye, also you find an officer. So that was that. He greets me and he normally asks me questions saying that how was your stay and stuff like that. And I said him it was very much well. Then he asked, you have me any suggestions? And then now comes the funny part. I was like very serious. I said, sir, there's no coffee in the candidates miss. And he started smiling. Maybe he would have burst out in laughter, because the situation was like that. He just afforded to smile. Then he asked me, why do you think there should be coffee in mess? Then I explained him saying that, no sir, suppose you drink coffee, it tends to boost your energy and keeps you more active because of the caffeine in it. No, because I regularly work out and I usually take a cup of black coffee or whichever coffee is available for me. Then he started smiling. I guess the other officers also were. I'm not sure about that. And then what happens is like then he questions me saying that Karnataka has the best coffee. Then like yes sir, most of us know that Karnataka is the number one producer of coffee. So he tells that. Then he's like, so could you get us some coffee? I was like, yes sir, for sure. Oh, Mangalore is famous for coffees, right? You could get it from there. I'm like, no, right? Mangalore is not famous. Then I confronted a sir and saying, so no sir, you're wrong. Mangalore is not known for its coffee. It's coconuts in Mangalore, and there's a place called Chikmagaluru that is famous for coffees. I guess he gave that accepting smile, saying that, oh, not like I accept what you told, and I was happy. I was in a way happy because I got to correct a person. Like I got to correct a person. Like I'm not like I know I'm not in a position to correct them, but I kind of felt good because I could correct a person who's like in that position. So that was like the funniest part. I was like that part entire conversation was very serious that there was no coffee, and they found it surprisingly funny. Then post that he asked me, why do you want to join the Air Force specially? I was like, sir, no sir, it's not about joining the Air Force, Army or the Navy. I tried for I would be very happy with I get into any force. My ultimate goal is to serve the nation or get into the forces and complete my passion. I told him that, and he asked me what is your driving force, and I explained it to him saying that I draw a lot of motivation from my uncle, and I've seen people train and stuff like that. And he asked me, what do you think will make you fit for the Air Force? Then I told him, I'm very physically very fit, sir. I know at the same time I have a scope for improvement and I will improve. And apart from that, when I get into the academy, there will be a lot of things which will shape you even mentally as well. Mentally also, it will make you very fit, because I feel that more than being physically fit, mentally also you need to be very strong in order to complete a task, especially you're in the defense forces. So I explained it to him. He gave another smile. I guess he kind of validated. His smile was something which validated my answers, and I got to know that maybe I might be recommended. Maybe I might be recommended because I gave him all concrete answers and nothing were like superficial or nothing which we couldn't do. So because I had also performed very well, because I not only gave him that answer, I even proved in my GTOs or whatever that I showed my physical fitness, be it my mentally how I portray myself. I've given all that, and I knew that, and that is why I backed it by saying there very. I literally looked into his eyes and I told it. I pretty much expect that he accepted my answer, and my confidence was over. And I go out and I'm like sitting, everybody are like, when the DSO comes in and he starts, right, they give the motivation speech saying that maybe if you're not getting in, there's something which is very much better waiting for you in life. Everybody starts their prayers. I'm like, see, I didn't pray. I knew that if I perform very well, I will get through. If I didn't perform well, I've gone somewhere wrong, I have to introspect. I was like, with a very clear mind, with that thing I got into my mind. I was like, DSO comes and he flips his face and he calls chest number 7, and I was like bending down and looking, yeah, I'm chest number 7, and I like woke up and I went to the stage. Wow. And the other next person is 66, and they closed the book only out of, I guess, around 120, 130 or 140 reported, and we two got recommended. It's like this was like a very good journey. I was technically a fresher because I was green out. I was a fresher. Another person was a repeater. So it went on well. That day was like pretty well, and this was very much my conference part.
So Kishore, I enjoyed your journey, and I must believe that it is going to be very helpful, and they are going to get a lot of insight regarding the SSB process. So Kishore, any tips you want to give to the candidates who are fresher and they are also not taking coaching? So anything you want to suggest to them, those who are preparing for SSB?
Yeah, first thing I would like to say is like focus on your physical fitness, because it plays a very vital role, not only for your GTO task. It helps you focus, concentrate. It keeps you literally moving. You won't feel tired because all the tests like takes place at a very early hours. So you need to wake up early and you need to survive for a long day, especially with the screenings in AFSBs we are going. You will have to start around 5 at 5:30 ish, because the reporting goes at 6 and you have a very long day with the psychology. So to put up with it, your physical fitness is something which you need to focus. It doesn't mean that you go to the gym and hit 2-3 hours. A minimum of 40 to 50 minutes of light workout will literally keep you active for that entire thing. So that is one thing which I would like to focus. And other thing is like focus on your writing speed, because that when it comes to psychology, it is mainly against your focus. You have to focus mainly against the it's your race against time.
Right.
Yeah, so you have to focus speed. That is another thing which I would like to say. Another thing is like stay away from negativity. You'll come across a lot of people, you'll meet a lot of people when you go to your interviews. They'll tell a lot of stuff, but believe in yourself. Don't if it's so, try to filter whatever you listen. That is another thing I would like to say. Like, because people tend to tell a lot of things, in that there are some things which are very good and something which are very bad. You need to have that mind to know which is right and which is wrong for you, and you need to filter it accordingly and take the positive ones in your mindset. And if possible, take up a team sport possibly, because it will help you learn what is team bonding, which is necessary when you go to your GTOs, and try to converse with them, have a healthy conversation and something like that. Yeah, this is something which I would like to say who are going like for the first time to the FSBs or the SSB.
So Kishore, thank you so much for coming to Defense Roger and giving us your precious time and sharing your experience as well as your knowledge. And I must say it is going to benefit a lot of candidates who are preparing for the SSB. And thank you so much for coming.
It was my pleasure as well, Sheetal. Thank you for having me here. It was like my first time giving an interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Even the qualities of question, the way you put it out was like really amazing. Keep this going. I don't know like how far would this my interview benefit a lot of people. Even if it benefits one or two, I would be very happy. So I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thanks for watching the video, and let me know in the comment section below if you have any doubts. Follow for more such content. Keep watching Defense Roger. Jai Hind.